Thursday, February 20th, 2025 at 6 p.m. We are at the District Service Center in Cottage Grove, Minnesota. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the land of the Mdewakanton Dakota people. Mdewakanton means dwellers of the Spirit Lake. Our first item on the agenda is 1.0 roll call. Dana?
Brian Clark.
Good evening.
Sharon Van Leer.
Here.
Eric Tessmer. Melinda Doles. Simi Petnaik. Saji Ibrahim.
Here.
Jeanette Hajimonu.
Here.
Katie Schwartz.
Here. 2.0 Pledge of Allegiance, please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
3.0 is the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
Second.
Moved by Sharon, seconded by Simi. Any comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. 4.0 is comments to the board. At this time, individuals may speak to the school board on any item relating to South Washington County Schools. The board will not respond to or discuss your comments. Character abuse or specific complaints identifying staff, students, or task force members will not be permitted. The superintendent may be asked to prepare a response to your concerns. The comments to the board period will be held open for up to 30 minutes in total. Each speaker is permitted to speak for 3 minutes in total, and the school board will allow up to 3 speakers per topic. At the
Thank you. I feel a little out of sorts because typically on a day or an evening like this, we have our student ambassadors with us, and so it was over a week ago they were here. And so as I was reviewing with them, last time they were in, we did a tour of district office, and they were all excited about the multiple things they learned about the number of students, of the number of dollars. I think someone guessed that, our budget was like $100,000, and then when we told them it was like over 300 million, they were like, whoa, we're rich. Not quite, not quite. But I feel like we've lost some ground not having them here. So I'm going to start with our elementary student, Seja. And Seja, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and just share what school you're from and what you enjoy about being a student leader.
I go to Newport Elementary, and something I enjoy about being a student ambassador is coming to these meetings and seeing a bunch of people from different schools and meeting new people. It's a nice experience because they're new people, and it's nice to make friends.
And Seja, you can actually keep your microphone on. From the first time they all rode the buses together and were down here, it was silent. Is everybody a little louder now talking?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We definitely have made connections and made relationships. What is one positive experience or something fun you're doing in your school this year?
Something fun that we are doing this year is a 5th grade play. We do this every single year, and it's really fun because you get to see all your friends, and we get to hang out, have snacks. Sometimes we have parties. It's really fun because they're people you know.
And I think the key thing is just hanging out and being with other kids after school as part of this play. The next question, what have you learned about the school district as part of your representation? I know when we were talking earlier, you said something about the print shop. What did you see when we visited the print shop in the back?
I saw 5 million pieces of paper. Not exactly, but they were in boxes. It looked like a small amount, but it was really 5 million.
Our students happened to go through on the day when the boxes were apparently delivered, but there was like half of the space was all paper boxes. Mm-hmm. Did you get to see your red bin that goes back to your school? Did you get to see the red bin for printing?
Yeah, I saw it. It's really cool.
We explained to the students that we have a truck that takes district printing back to their school site, so they got to see that. And finally, as we close up, it is I Love to Read Month. What book are you reading right now, and what genre is that book?
I am reading Forgotten City. It's a science fiction book.
And what do you like about that book?
I like how the main character, he protects himself, and he meets other survivors, and he really wants to protect him and his dad and the other survivors.
So a science fiction, there we go. Thank you, Seja. All right, we're going to move on. Jeanette. Jeanette is our middle schooler, and I'll have her introduce herself, and she gets to kind of go by herself now. She has a little presentation all put together. So Jeanette, just make sure your microphone is down. There you go.
Hello, my name is Jeanette, and I'm in 7th grade. I attend Altman Middle School. The best thing about being a student leader would be sharing my ideas and knowing what's going on in each school. I feel the most motivated to learn when I am interested in the subject or think about how it can help me. Some positive experiences I've had in school would be being a part of after-school events and getting better in some subjects. A few things I've learned about the district is how they get things done and why student voices matter. And finally, if I could make any program, I would make an after-school book program to help people get into reading.
So while we're talking about books, what is your favorite book?
I really love the Dork Diary books.
Okay, the Dork Diary books. And you mentioned you like to learn about your favorite subject. What is that favorite subject and why?
I like language arts because it helps me build my vocabulary, and I like to look at how words are spelled, and We learned how, what else was I going to say? Oops. And we learned like how some words are connected to others and how like they work together.
Absolutely. That is part of what we learn. Thank you so much, and thank you to our student ambassadors for being here this evening.
Thank you both. Okay, 6.0 is our consent items. All consent items are considered routine and non-controversial by the school board and will be approved by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. Prior to the meeting, board members have had the opportunity to review each of these items and could have requested that any one of them be moved to an action item for individual consideration. That has not happened this evening, so can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Melinda, seconded by Simi. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now we move on to 7.0, and that is our information items. We do have one this evening. It is 7.1, Indigenous Education Annual Update, and that will be introduced by Kelly Jansen, Assistant Superintendent.
Good evening, Board Chair Schwartz, Board Members, Superintendent Nielsen, and student ambassadors. I'm here this evening to introduce our required annual Indigenous Education Report, including highlights from our participation in the Minnesota American Indian Education Aid Program. Tonight you will hear about the requirements to receive the aid, the program goals and strategies implemented with the support of the funds from the aid, and you will hear from our Native American Parent Advisory Committee, or NAPAC, who holds an annual compliance vote indicating whether or not they believe we are using the funds in alignment with their intended purpose. At this time, I'd like to introduce those supporting the presentation: Stephanie Schroeder, Indigenous Education Community Coordinator; Bob Tweedy, Chair of the SoWashCo Native American Parent Advisory Committee; and James McGee, our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Thanks, Kelly. Good evening, everybody. Just a quick programming note. Throughout this presentation, through the legislation, and through our program, you're going to see some terms that can be used interchangeably, though they don't necessarily mean the exact same thing. In our district, we have a parent advisory called our Native American Parent Advisory Committee. This committee opted to use the term Indigenous when referring to American Indian education, Native American education, and the reason why that name hasn't changed yet is it's just a matter of passing it in our bylaws. You'll also see the term American Indian used. That is the term that is used in the state legislation. And then when you see American Indian Parent Advisory Committee, that is also referring to what is in the legislation from the state. For our purposes tonight, all of these terms will be used, or can be used interchangeably, though in practice they may mean slightly different things. So as a school district that has more than 20 self-identified students who belong to the Native American community, we're eligible to participate in the American Indian Education Aid Program. You're going to see, you may remember a couple years ago, there's a change in legislation. Through the change in legislation, which increased the amount of revenue for American Indian education, along with a slight jump in our student count, you'll see the aid jump in 22 to 23, then a modest jump from 23 to 24, and we anticipate that we'll be right around the same level of funding for the state aid next year as well, based on where our student count currently is. Some requirements once we're enrolled in the program. First of all, we have to have at least 20 Indigenous students who have self-identified in our Mars report on October 1st. We also have to have a working parent advisory committee to advise on the program, on activities, on the way the money is utilized, and to vote on whether or not we're meeting the intent of the program. Currently, we have 386 students who have identified as Native American or Indigenous in our district, and that's about 2% of our student population. One of the things that we have to do, and that we are happy to do, is partner with our Parent Advisory Committee. The Parent Advisory Committee, by legislation, is the one to vote whether or not the district and the program are meeting the goals that we set forth in our aid package at the beginning of each school year. And we're happy to report that on January 14th, our Parent Advisory did vote concurrent and agreed that we are making progress in using the funds the way that they are intended in the aid program. Now, just one quick thing to know about the aid program. From the state, there are 5, kind of 6 focus areas that have been set forth for us by the state. So all of the activities and strategies that we'll talk about in a moment fall into these categories that were set forth for us. And then that last one, supplement, not supplant, that's kind of a check that we're meant to do on all of those focus areas to make sure that we're supplementing curriculum or strategies, not supplanting things that were already in place. So now to talk in a little more detail about the focus areas, the action steps, and the strategies that we have, I'm happy to introduce Stephanie Schroeder.
Bonjour, hello. We have again, we're taking a look at the different focus areas. Our first focus area is post-secondary preparation. So how do we get our Indigenous students prepared for college? And so one of the things that we're really focusing on this year is making sure that our students are taking the ACT. Last year we had such a small number that took the ACT that it was hard to chart. And so this year we're really trying to get at least 10 students to take the ACTs, which doesn't sound like a big number, but for our Indigenous students it really is. So so one of the things that we're doing is we're doing an ACT test prep course just for our Indigenous students. It's going to be held virtually so that they can do it from the comfort of their homes. Another strategy that we use is our cultural liaison. She's awesome. She's able to work one-on-one with students and work in groups. And I've also been able to go out into the schools and spend some time with students, kind of help mentor them, talk them through some different choices as far as colleges and things. And it's been really nice to be able to spend time with students who haven't seen other Indigenous people like themselves. And so I met with a student today and he was just so pleased to say, "Is she Native?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." And so he felt that connection right away, and it was really nice. Focus area 2 is academic achievement of American Indian students. We have been known to some of the terrible stereotypes for American Indians is that we have the lowest graduation rate, but not in SoWashCo. So according to the state, for the 4-year graduation rates, you'll notice that the numbers for SoWashCo are much higher. That's because our Indigenous students in our district are graduating at a much higher rate than around the rest of the state of Minnesota. So we have something great going for us down here. We've got our one-on-one guidance and tutoring. We've been pushing our literacy this year. We want to make sure that our students can read. So one of the ways we're doing that is we are doing a kindergarten through 5th grade literacy tutoring program with Indigenous authored books. And each 6 weeks we are doing a progress monitoring cycle to make sure to see if they are improving or if they're getting the skills. For middle schoolers, we are doing a book club. So that way we can kind of take a look at our stories and figure out how to reinterpret them, because traditionally they are always oral stories, but now being written, it's kind of how do we apply those traditional teachings, but still improve their literacy skills. And for high school, of course, we've got that ACT test prep that's going to take them through each section of the test and help them improve literacy as well. Focus area 3 is curriculum, so embedding our American Indian cultural heritage learning into standards, lessons, learning outcomes, being part of different review cycles, and just having representation on some of those standards and committees. We provide Indigenous authored books for all of our Indigenous students for winter break, for spring break, to make sure they have something that they can read and they can enjoy. I've had the honor of being able to sit on some different committees, the Standards and Instructional Review Cycle, the Scope and Sequence, both the elementary and the high school leadership committee, the Cultural Trunk. The cultural trunks have finally started to be utilized. We've bought those a couple of years ago, but now we're actually able to get them out into the schools. I'm able to do some lessons, some demonstrations, and now some of our key people in the schools are taking those lessons and turning them into their own styles. So being able to work with authentic artifacts. Focus area 4, positive reinforcement. So we want to provide more opportunities for the Indigenous students, the Indigenous families and community members to come together to actually create that community. Because there really isn't a space here in the community, and so through our school system, we're going to create that community. So we have got different celebrations, we have different storytelling nights, we have our senior honoring. Because we are so interested in making sure that our students do graduate and realize how important that graduation is, we always have a huge senior honoring program at the end of the year to make sure that they see that importance. So we've been having a lot more requests from families for one-on-one support or mentoring. I think just being able to have more people in the district. Previously, we've only had one cultural liaison, but now we've got myself and the cultural liaison in the school district, and so there have been a lot more opportunities for us to be able to reach out and connect one-on-one with families and with students, and so that's been really helpful. I think talked about those. Developing intercultural awareness. So not only do we want to make sure our Indigenous students know their history and background, but we also want to make sure that the other students, the rest of our population, have a good understanding of why Indigenous students have this unique status. And so we've done that through different things, like meaningful professional development for our teachers, the Indigenous Book Club for SoWashCo staff that happened last summer. We've got some different asynchronous learning classroom presentations. I got to spend an entire afternoon teaching the entire 3rd grade of Woodbury Elementary School for our cultural trunks, and that was a lot of fun, being able to describe the differences with the Ojibwe and the Dakota floral beadwork and stuff like that, and that was a lot. That was all the students, not just our Indigenous students. And of course, the last focus area, Area 6, supplement state and federal education programs. So supplement, not supplant. So this is specifically funds set aside for our Indigenous families and our Indigenous students. So mi'u, miigwech, miigwech bezindawayeg. Thank you for listening. That's all I have for tonight.
Before we open up for questions, Bob, was there anything that you wanted to add to the presentation? We like to talk. We're very passionate about this program, but I just want to make sure you had opportunity. All right, okay. So are there any questions about the programming?
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
I do. So I just had a couple questions. So you had mentioned you wanted to get over 10 students a year taking the ACT. So, excuse me, I happen to be a parent of a junior, so I know that April is ACT time at our high schools. So would that be the time that they would use? So it would be just encouraging them to show up that day and take the test. How many Native students do we typically have in any given year? Like by my rough math, it's roughly 30, but I don't know if that's really how it works.
The majority of our Indigenous students in the district are about elementary age.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got, I think we have 30 seniors and 20 juniors.
Okay, so you're expecting to get over 50% of the juniors to come and take the ACT?
Yes.
Okay. And have the students seemed kind of receptive to the idea? I mean, I know like the ACT can be pretty daunting for a lot of kids. Like, are they receptive to taking the test?
Yes, they were very excited about the test prep course, because then they're like, yes, please, because they want some guidance, some help.
Yeah, okay, oh, for sure. And then my second question was around the Native literacy programs you have for elementary kids. Mm-hmm. And so how does that, because you said every 6 weeks there's a check-in of some sort. So how does that work with our ARC curriculum and what our teachers are doing in elementary, sort of overall for all of the kids?
So we built the literacy program specifically with our elementary literacy lead. So this is a supplement to ARC programming, so with culturally authentic texts. However, the benchmarks, the strategies are all still the same. They are derived from ARC. In addition to that, it is SoWashCo teachers that are the literacy tutors, and so most of them have already been exposed to ARC. Not every tutor has to be an elementary teacher, but regardless of their teaching or whatever area they teach in, they're all trained in those ARC strategies before we begin tutoring students. So all of our staff that are in the tutoring program have been exposed to the ARC curriculum, or at least the strategies that they'll be using for the tutoring.
Okay, and so if I remember correctly, like the ARC curriculum had us, like each kid has their own power goal? Is that the correct term or something like that? So are those incorporated in for this as well for these students?
I'm gonna say I'm getting a little out of my lane, but what we can do is we can definitely get more information for you. I don't want to misspeak on exactly how it aligns with ARC. I know the concepts are all from ARC, but I can't speak to if we're using the same online data tracking that we're using like we are in the classroom, but we can get that information to the board.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah. And then in terms of like using culturally authentic text or relevant text for these kids, has that been challenging to acquire like an appropriately sized library for the kids? Or, I mean, because listen, when I was a kid, I was the only kid who looked like me in my entire elementary school. And I mean, I was probably in college before I saw a book with a character that looked like me. So I'm just curious, like, how hard has it been for kids to have this experience?
It really is difficult because you need to go to the specialty stores. And thankfully, Louise Erdrich opened up Birch Bark Books over in Minneapolis, and they do a lot of self-publishing. And so actually there are a lot of texts now that are coming out in the languages. So we've got Ojibwe comic books. We've got Dakota comic books, which is really cool kind of to experience, because then you can visually see it and have the language right there too.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Anyone else?
One question. Is your funding source exclusively state aid?
So for what we just presented on, yes, this is only talking about the state aid. There is a separate federal revenue source for Native American education? And however the federal puts it. Yep, and that's treaty-based, and that is a significantly less amount. I think something like 25,000.
I'm going to go 26, and 26. I just sent that to a board member who asked that earlier. So I want to say that federal award not connected to this is 26,000.
Yep.
And no local funding? Like from within?
No, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to check.
Okay.
Yeah, so everything that we just articulated is all state revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 8.0, and that is our action items. We do have two this evening. The first one is 8.1, and that is a resolution to appoint a school board member, and that will be presented by myself. At the last board meeting, we discussed that and agreed that we would follow the procedure to appoint a board member. After some discussion, it was decided that we would appoint Louise Hines to fill the vacancy. Her first meeting would be the March 27th, 2025 school board meeting. And her term would be until the next general election in November of 2025. So can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Sharon, seconded by Simi. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none, this is a resolution, so we will need a roll call. Dana?
Ryan Clark,
Approve.
Sharon Van Leer,
Yes.
Eric Tessmer,
Yes.
Melinda Doles, Simi Petnaik,
Yes.
Katie Schwartz.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. We will move on now to 8.2, and that is proposed policy changes, and that will be presented by Julie Nielsen, Superintendent.
Good evening. I am bringing forward the 8 policies that we reviewed at our last board meeting, including 410, family and medical leave. We have 413 and 525.1, both harassment and violence. Our mandated reporting of child neglect or abuse, mandated reporting of maltreatment, student discipline, and then our school district system accountability. And these are all those annual updates. And as was shared with the board, we know that there are some executive orders out there, but at this point, our policies reflect where we are at with state law. And so this evening, I am asking for approval of those 8 policies.
Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Sharon, seconded by Simi. Any comments?
I do have a comment. On policy 525.1. You'll have to bear with me. I'm going to recall just an experience that I had this last weekend. I was at Eastridge High School, and I was attending a volleyball tournament that my 16-year-old daughter was involved in. And we were leaving the school, and as we were walking out toward the athletic exit, I noticed an office door. I don't know exactly what office it was for. If it was the main office, probably not the main office, but maybe the athletic office. And on the athletic office door, my daughter pointed out to me that it said, "Protect Black Youth." And I thought to myself, okay, fine. And then she made the comment to me, she said, she's like, interesting. She's like, if I went to this school, I guess this school is not all that concerned about protecting me. Now, my daughter she looks like me. She's much more beautiful than I am. However, she looks like me. I guess you would say she's white. She's significantly more than that, but that's what she looks like. So she says, I have to go to the bathroom. So she goes to the bathroom, and I take this opportunity to walk around a little bit in the cafeteria area, see what else I can find. I run into the inclusion center, and on the door to the inclusion center, I find a phrase written on the inclusion center that says, to be young, to be gifted, and to be Black. And I want to be clear on something. There's nothing wrong with either one of these statements. I don't think anybody would disagree that we need to protect Black youth, and I don't think there's anything wrong with highlighting, I guess, since the term was used, Black individuals who are gifted and highlighting their accomplishments. However, here's the issue. I think it's very ironic, and I'm going to tie this back into the policy in a minute, so bear with me. It's ironic to me that on a inclusion center, okay, that says inclusion center, we have what to me appears to be an exclusive phrase. It excludes every single person, every single student that doesn't fit into the ideologically created racial box that essentially is on that door, okay? I mean, there's many different ethnicities, skin pigmentations, people from all over the world that attend that particular school in this case. And none of those people, if you don't fall into that particular box, you don't meet the criteria, apparently, according to the Inclusion Center, for entering the Inclusion Center. So now I'm not saying this to try to attempt to drum up some sort of sympathy for my daughter, because she doesn't need any sympathy, certainly. She's a very strong, young 16-year-old adult, and she's very well versed and educated in the toxicity of racial and cultural Marxism, which is what I believe this is. That being said, I think about, and she's got the benefit of having a strong male role model in her life. She's got the benefit of having a strong female role model in her life. But what I think about is, what about the student who doesn't have those things and perhaps is going to the Inclusion Center or is walking into this office to get some sort of counseling for whatever problem is going on in their life? And maybe they don't have anywhere else to turn. And they walk up to this door and they see something that indicates to them that they don't fit into that particular box. And perhaps they turn around and go, okay, I guess I'm not wanted here, or I guess I'm not worthy of getting whatever kind of advice or whatever kind of help maybe through that door. And I never really thought about this in this way until I experienced this with my daughter. And it kind of struck me a little bit, and not in a good way. And to tie it into this, policy, as I was reviewing the policy, and I reviewed it the week before that meeting, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks before, in the last meeting, it didn't really strike me at all because it seems like a reasonable policy. However, in light of this experience of mine, I think that our schools are acting contrary to our very own policy. The policy, if you read section B, clause 1, or before clause 1, it says racial harassment consists of physical or verbal conduct relating to an individual's race when the conduct, clause 1, has the purpose or effect of creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive working or academic environment. And if you go down to clause 3, it says otherwise adversely affects an individual's employment or academic opportunities. Now, with this type of exclusive speech or exclusive verbiage on a door that by its very nature does not include all students, it seems to me to be hostile by omission. And I think that we need to do our due diligence on this in this school district to rectify this contradiction. We either need to change the policy, which I don't think we should. I think the policy in itself is sound, or we need to change the practice that's going on in our schools. And I suspect that the practices at Eastridge are not alone. I suspect that these kinds of practices are probably going on across our schools. And I think it is an issue. I don't think it's an issue. I believe in my heart that it is an issue. This kind of ununifying, divisive type, exclusive speech put in our school system. I understand its intended purpose. But there are unintended consequences to this kind of language, and I think that needs to be rectified. I would urge that we would table this particular policy, perhaps, for the next meeting to have a further discussion. Barring that, I will be voting no, not to approve it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Any other comments?
525.1, or 5.
25.1 was staff.
I'll add something here. I think it's important for the school district to be neutral. It should be politically neutral. We're supposed to be nonpartisan. Many people view these things as having partisan undertones. And so to that end, I agree with Eric. These things shouldn't be in the school. People can feel the way that they feel. That's fine. But the school should not have this type of stuff displayed on the walls. And I've seen this stuff in Eastridge too. My son goes to Eastridge. I have pictures of the stuff on my phone. I've brought this to the superintendent's attention. This is what I ran on. We should be balanced, right? We have kids from all walks of life who attend our schools, and I concur. It doesn't belong in school. The school's job is to educate our children, to help them achieve the maximum academic excellence that they can achieve. And I feel that the partisan divide that we have, we're inundated with it every day outside of school, so why do we need to have it in the school? I think it's in our best interest to try not to bring politics into the school. So to that end, we shouldn't have, Black Lives Matter posters up in the school. We shouldn't have White Lives Matter posters. We shouldn't have any of those things. It should be, if we want to have diversity of thought, great. If we want to highlight different ethnic people who have done great things for education, great, but it should be tied to education, that's it. And so I would agree. I've been saying this for a long time. We're not adversarial. We don't want to have issues. It's just, we want balance. Balance and neutrality is not that much to ask for. I've spoken to this with everyone on the board individually. I tend to concur. So I'm with Eric on this one.
If I can go further, the problem is that when you begin to highlight one particular racial group or one particular ethnic group, you are inevitably going to leave out numerous racial and ethnic groups. Inevitably. It's like when somebody gives a speech where they've been given an award and they start thanking people. And they always say, you know what, I don't even want to start thanking people because I know I'm going to leave somebody out. They do that for a reason, because they don't want somebody to feel left out. We are making students feel left out, okay? We are making students feel left out by doing these kinds of things. It is not right. This is a public school district that provides public education to a large variety of people, which is great. If we want to be inclusive, then be inclusive. If you want to be exclusive, you keep doing this kind of stuff.
Any other comments?
Yep. We can come together to agree to disagree. But for hundreds of years, people of color have been silenced. It is time for them to speak up and speak out. Stand up for what's right. It's called freedom of speech. I feel that these children have a right, with all of the discord that goes on, not only in this district, in these schools, but in the country. We have been silenced. We are no longer going to be silenced. We're going to be heard, seen, and I think that if anybody else wants to put up a sign, they can do it. What about the signs that say black people are not welcome here? What about some of the things that are said in the newspaper and in context of doing justice to themselves? We need to let these kids determine for themselves what it is that they want. And if they saw so fit to put it into the school, to be recognized, to be heard, and to be seen. And this is in case you don't know, this is Black History Month. And we have it, Black Lives Matter. And that is what we're trying to say. That's it.
Sharon, I appreciate your opinion, I really do. I think you're a very well-spoken, intelligent individual. That being said, look, you're not going to find a stronger proponent of free speech in this room, I guarantee you that. And I am not here to suppress anybody's free speech.
Yeah.
I am not here to suppress anybody's free speech. I'm not here to suppress anybody highlighting the achievements of any race. Okay, what I'm saying is that when you put things like that in public, you're leaving people out. You're excluding people. And I don't mean to diminish certainly the horrors that were inflicted on black people, African Americans, and many others in this country for hundreds of years. I don't mean to diminish that whatsoever. I understand that happens. But is the solution to that to go overboard the other side? I don't think so.
Why don't we ask the kids? I think that's where, I mean, obviously, I mean, are the kids complaining about it in the schools? I don't think so. I think I've listened to them. In fact, I suggest you go to the Black History program that they're having at, where is it?
It's
East Ridge?
next week.
Yes, next week. I've been asked to speak there. Try and go to it and listen to what they have to say. And then if you still feel the same way, I mean, I'm listening to you, so, I mean, you know, it ain't going to, so, you know, that's all I suggest. I think it's a way of the kids feeling like they've been left out. Do you understand what I'm talking about? They haven't been seen. They haven't been heard. So what are they doing? And it's not a violent protest. It's not a violent protest.
Of course not. But again, I asked you, so your solution to a group of people not being heard traditionally for however long, hundreds of years, is to then subject others to
make a statement that Black Lives Matter? No, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Because you're exclusive. You're excluding others with that statement. You're excluding others with that statement. My daughter says to me, I guess I'm not worthy, or something to the effect, I guess I'm not worthy of protection, when she sees that. Now, again, my daughter is a strong 16-year-old young lady. There's others that aren't so strong.
Yeah.
That certainly will look at that and go, say the same thing to themselves. Now, they maybe don't have a strong role model like me to turn to, and
you
it's
should
okay.
say, and you should have said, oh, yes, you do matter.
Why should I have to say that to her?
So wait,
It's only because she saw that thought even crossed her mind.
Okay, let's see if any other board members would like to speak on this topic, please.
So people may or may not know, but my husband and I own a small business, and several years ago, we were advertising for a new hire. And one thing that I had learned from talking with lots of hiring managers was that when you put in a document, you know, everyone is welcome or everyone is included, there are many groups in this country who do not feel like the word everyone applies to them. And so that's why you will often see when companies are hiring, they will call out groups that traditionally have felt like they were not included. So women or veterans or people with disabilities or people of color or whatever.
LGBTQ.
Yeah, LGBTQ, right? And so the idea behind that is to signal to people that when you say everyone is included, we are further stating these classes of people because you don't necessarily, like statistically, we know that when we say everyone, you don't feel like everyone includes you. And so my question would be that for those students who feel like, okay, we're gonna say everyone matters at this school, we know statistically in this country that when the word everyone is used, there are huge subsets of this country who don't feel like everyone applies to them. What is our solution then to allow those students to feel like they are included if we don't specifically call it out? And you know, I was advised to call it out specifically in our job posting because we wanted to make sure that we felt like everyone in the community was welcome to apply for this job. And so how do we communicate that to students when we don't allow students to do things like say, you know, I'm young, gifted, and black, or whatever terminology it is that they want to use? I'm legitimately asking a question. I want to make sure I understand what do we do then as a board, or as what does district administration do to help students feel like they are part of our school community other than doing what we did until, you know, the 1960s or whatever?
Well, I guess,
So what I'm going to call, this policy that we are talking about does not talk about posters. It is not about these posters. That is our diversity, equity, and inclusion. So when that topic comes up, we can have this discussion. We are getting way off of the actual policy
okay,
that
but
we're
I think
here
there's
to vote
a
on.
direct link to this policy. That's my point in bringing this up tonight.
But it's not in this policy. It is not in this policy. This policy is about harassment, and it is not about these.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is that this policy is contradicting the practices going on in our schools.
This policy is not. This policy is about.
I believe it is. I believe you're creating a hostile area because you're explicitly excluding people.
I'm going to call the vote. Can I get a second to call the vote?
On a door.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Motion passes. We will move on to 9.0, superintendent report.
All right, we had a parent at the open mic tonight talk about the SEC Festival, which I know that a number of us attended that, but also to highlight our Eastridge High School Symphonic Band under the direction of Brent Como. It was shared, and we attended, a number of district leaders along with school leaders. It was the Super Bowl of bands. And so they performed during their National Music Conference. And so a big shout out to Eastridge High School. Not only did they have school and district leaders there, but they also had, I believe, 100% of their middle and high school and middle school music staff as well. Secondly, it is I Love to Read Month as I talk to the students, and so I've been out reading in classrooms. And as one of the teachers prompted the students, they said, "This is the person who's in charge of the," and one yelled out, "world." And then she gave them a little bit of a clue, and she said the duh, and the next student yelled out, "disco." So I am the superintendent in charge of the disco according to kindergartners. This morning, Kelly Jansen and I had the opportunity to start at Woodbury Middle School. They had an Avid Showcase, and part of that Avid Showcase, we probably had 8 to 10 different school districts that were visiting Woodbury Middle School, and in all of our classrooms, taking a look at the high-quality instruction that's occurring at Woodbury Middle School. And finally, just to close, I know our Girl Scouts had a great picture. I know not everybody got to see this, but you talked about in your bus stops you talked about the frigid temperatures. And I do want you to know, students, that I got this picture. From some of our staff letting me know that it was cold outside. And so just to share with the community some of the thinking, I think sometimes when a cold day or a snow day is called, there is a precision to how it's done. Like a specific temperature or wind chill is going to set us into not having school. First off, number one is that we want to keep schools in session as much as possible. And that really, when we're talking about that number of students, it has a big impact. But secondly, on Tuesday, when we did close for a school day, obviously we know that there were other school districts, but that's still not the reason to make the decision. Our buses were sitting idle Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Monday because of the holiday, Friday because of a professional development day. With those temperatures, we were not even sure that the buses were going to start. On Monday, staff came in, they were able to get the buses started, we let the buses run. We knew that Wednesday morning was going to be a bit colder, and so we were certain, though, that the buses were going to start, and of course, they did start. Parents and community probably saw a message that came out from our communications department just saying, work with a neighbor, sit in a warm car. If you don't feel comfortable, then please just keep your kids at home. Like, we opt for that, and students are excused. So there is no precision. It's not a temperature. It's not a point. To be quite honest, as I drove, even through our own school district, the temperatures varied. As I was driving up here that morning at about 4:30 a.m., the temperature ranged from everything minus 17 all the way to the parking lot here that was minus 10. And so while we were thinking it was going to be minus 17 or higher, it didn't quite get that high. And so hence the reason one day there was a closure and the next day we were back in session. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 10.0, future meeting dates. March 6, 2025, school board workshop meeting here at the District Service Center at 6 p.m. Then March 27, 2025, there is a school board business meeting also here at the District Service Center at 6 p.m. With that, 11.0, and we are adjourned.